Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming the controversial parenting tag. I can never say the word controversial, so it's basically a list of questions sort of going into your parenting style and your beliefs and things like that. And obviously everyone parents differently, so it's kind of, that's why it's controversial, because our answers might be not what your answers would be. So here we go, I'm just going to work through them. First is pro-life or pro-choice. Now I am very much pro-choice. I believe that every woman has the right to decide what happens to her body. I think that's really, really important. Whether or not personally I would have an abortion, I don't know. I am a Christian and I do believe in life, but I wouldn't blame anyone else for choosing that option. And I couldn't say 100% what would happen if I was ever in a position where an abortion might be considered. So I'm definitely pro-choice. Baby wearing, I don't know why that's controversial. I don't know why you would be against baby wearing, but yeah, with my eldest I didn't baby wear at all, but she's 10 now, so it really wasn't very like fashionable, just wasn't the thing to do back then. And with my middle little girl, she's 6 now, and I did baby wear her quite a lot when in the first year. I had a Mai Tai carrier and I carried her around for about the first year. Little boy, I didn't, even though baby wearing was more fashionable then, because he's just coming up to 3, I didn't actually baby wear him very much because he was really fat. He was really heavy and he was born in the summer, and it just like, and I've got a bad back and I had a section, and it just didn't feel comfortable. So and he didn't really like being in the Mai Tai carrier. So when he got a bit older, I did buy a ring sling, which I wish I'd done when he was a little bit younger, because I would have done that. I would have worn him in that more, I think, but I didn't wear him that much. I did also buy a stocky sort of carrier, one of those more structured ones, and my husband wore him on his back a few times. But as I said, he was really heavy, so I didn't do it that much. But I'm not opposed to it, and I would try it again. Now, circumcision. Now, this is one that we talked about quite a lot because we'd had 2 girls, and then when we had a boy, it was like, oh, should we talk about circumcision? And my dad and my brother were both circumcised. I don't know about my dad, but my brother was done for medical reasons. So when I grew up, that was what I was used to seeing. That was what they looked like. And then obviously as I got older, I discovered other people's didn't look like that. So for me, it's still like a circumcised one is what you would expect. But my husband's not circumcised and he doesn't really believe in doing that. So we haven't circumcised the little boy. They do it without anaesthetic, don't they, when they're really tiny, which I don't know if I could actually sit and watch him do. So yeah, I would probably, obviously I have erred on the side of keeping it natural, keeping it how it's supposed to be, unless you have a medical reason not to, but I'm not against it, I said, because it was normal for me when I grew up. Right, adoption. Again, I don't really know how this is controversial. How could you be against adoption? I think it's a really great thing to do. I would actually love to adopt a child. We've talked about it. My husband's not so keen, so I don't think it would work for us, but I would love to adopt a child. I think if you can give a child who leads a loving home, why wouldn't you? Baby piercing. I should have read that. I just wrote them down. I didn't even really realise what I was writing. Piercing babies, I presume. Piercing the ears? No, I don't like that. No. My daughter was 7 when she finally convinced me. Was she 8? Probably 8. She finally convinced, I think she was 8, finally convinced me to let her have her ears pierced. And I didn't want to do it for ages. I told her 13, but then as she got older and more sensible, I thought she's going to have them pierced at some point, so there's nothing. It was really silly for me to say no. She begged for ages, and she was really sensible and cleaned them and they didn't get infected, so yeah, but I didn't like watching her have them done. I wouldn't have done it any younger, I don't think. My middle daughter's 6 and she doesn't want hers done. She watched her sister having it done. She thought, oh, I'm not doing that, so But I don't think it's really necessary why people pierce babies' ears, and I think it's dangerous. But there we are. Breast milk versus formula. Now I breastfed all of my children, and I'm now a breastfeeding peer supporter. It's really, really important to me. I think breastfeeding is just the best thing you can do for your baby. And it upsets me so much when I see people who don't even try. And I know it can be hard, and I know some people can't do it, or it's difficult, but I just think when we live in a society where we've sexualized boobs to the extent that people won't even try to feed their babies how babies should be fed, it really upsets me. I just think there's so many benefits to breastfeeding for the mums and for the babies, and I don't know, it upsets me when people don't try, and it upsets me when people give you stick for breastfeeding. Like, my mother-in-law's not a big breastfeeding fan. I think I must have been the only, her grandchildren, my ones, are the only ones that have been breastfed in her family, and they're like her 12 grandchildren down the line. And she just didn't like it. I think maybe she half didn't like that she couldn't feed them, just half just didn't like the idea. I don't know. And and she definitely didn't like it when I fed in public. She never really said anything, but you could tell. So I suppose at least she didn't say anything. And my mum always thought, like, when they got past 4 months, that was enough. That was enough breastfeeding for them. And I fed my youngest 2 till they were a year. So I think she kept making little comments like all time for them to stop doing that. Which was quite funny. But yeah, if someone ever said anything to me I was out, I'd be fuming, absolutely fuming. So I'm very pro breastfeeding. I'm not against formula, I just don't think it's natural. And it's a great option if you can't breastfeed, or if you want to supplement a little bit, or if they're having a bad day and they're really hungry and you genuinely haven't got enough milk in that day. Or it's got its place, but I don't think it should be the norm to use formula. Spanking. No, I presume they mean child spanking. I don't agree with hitting children at all. I can't see how that's I'm saying that. I can't see how it works. I was hit when I was a kid by my dad and my mum, and it worked. It's a really good deterrent. I was afraid of getting hit, but I don't have a very close relationship with my dad or my mum, so I don't think long term it's really great. Yeah, I was like petrified of doing something naughty because I might get hit, but then long term, was that worth it? I wasn't a naughty kid, so I wouldn't hit my children. I don't agree with that. Co-sleeping. No, I don't have a problem with co-sleeping, and my children have all at some point jumped in our bed when they've been poorly or something like that. I wouldn't set out to co-sleep because I do think it's dangerous. I'm really heavy sleeper, and I worry that I would roll onto them and not realise, or pull the duvet over their heads. I just worry too much, basically, to do it myself. I like, especially when they're babies. Like a couple of times I was like breastfeeding and I fell asleep and they'd be in the bed with me, and when you wake up, the feeling of panic. And I always had a breathing monitor in their cot, so you can't use that if you're co-sleeping. That's part of my worry about them carrying on, being alive in the morning, basically. So I don't disagree with it, I just don't think it's the safest choice, which is why I wouldn't do it. Now the next question is home versus public versus private schooling. I looked into homeschooling when my eldest was little, just because I didn't really want to let her go. But I just realised that I was not the type of person who's going to be good at homeschooling. I'm not patient enough. I don't have the teaching skills, and she needed to socialise as well. And I know people who homeschool say, yeah, my children socialise. I'm sure they do, but not as much as kids in school, because they can't possibly socialise as much as kids in school unless they're in school. So there you are. And I think, they do need to learn to have that little bit of time to themselves, and I need that little bit of time to myself as well. So I wouldn't homeschool for those reasons. Not that I completely disagree with it, but I do know that some people, I do struggle with the people who like unschool, and I just think, I worry that their kids are not getting a full education, and then when they're older, how's that going to affect them? I know they'll be happy, but will they be able to get GCSEs? You know, will their parents put them in for GCSEs or things like that, you know? And I think you're making a massive, massive decision for your children, which could massively affect their future. It's not something I would do. But each to their own is my philosophy. Now, public versus private school, I don't really have an opinion. I think if you've got the money, then go, and you like private schooling, then go for it. I don't see a problem with it, as long as you ground your children in reality, so they're not spoiled little rich kids. They will. We've our children are all in state school, and I did look at private schooling a long time ago, but I wasn't impressed by the facilities at the private school that was near us. Just didn't seem, I didn't think that they were getting anything better for their money, basically. But now my eldest is going into secondary school, we've very seriously considered private schooling, because the secondary schools in our area are just not that great. And she's really bright and she wants to be a doctor, and I think to give her the best chance, we should seriously look at private schools. But on the other hand, we are not really rich, and sending her to private school would be a massive commitment, and it would massively affect our whole family. And we'd also have to send all the others, which just costs so much money. Right, vaccinations. I think you should vaccinate your children. I don't think that the state should make you vaccinate your children, but I don't understand why people wouldn't want to. I get really nervous when they have their vaccinations, just because you read so much about them causing all sorts of different things and side effects, but I've still always taken them for their vaccinations, because years ago children used to die from some of these illnesses, and we need to remember that. Medicating children. Now, I'm a bit funny about medication, and unless they really need medicine, they won't be having it. And I know some people are like popping the Calpol in whenever they can, but I really don't think that drugs are the answer a lot of the time. If they've got a temperature, then that's fine, or if there's something that medication can solve, then great, but it's not what I would reach for first, and I would always look for natural alternatives before medicating them. Cloth versus disposables. Now, I did use cloth nappies with my two girls, not like exclusively, but I'd say most of the time they were in cloth nappies, and it was great. I found it really easy. I loved washing them. It wasn't disgusting. The only thing that was a bit of pain was their bottoms were a bit bigger, so it was a bit more difficult with dressing them, because the nappies are a bit more bulky, and it was a little bit more difficult when you were out, but not that much more. I don't know why I haven't done it with little boy. I think because all our nappies were sort of pink and cream, and I'd sold them all actually. It was just really expensive to buy them again, and I don't know why. I should have cloth nappied him, but I didn't. So I agree with both. And now the last one is the crying it out method. Now this is controversial, and I do use the crying it out method, controlled crying, because it works. And to me, it's better that they cry for 5 or 10 minutes and then go to sleep and get a really good night's sleep, than they are up and down for hours and don't sleep properly, and that carries on. And in my honest experience, I would tell everyone this, I have maximum needed to do controlled crying for 2 or 3 days before they crack it. And we've done it a couple of times, like when we're teaching them to sleep through the night, or when they've been poorly and they've been in our bed, or their sleep routine's been disrupted. We've had to go back to it for a couple of days, but it's literally been 2 or 3 days of, we leave them to cry 5 minutes, go in, another 5 minutes, go in, just like that. And then leave it a little bit longer if it carries on. And it works, it really works, and it's really not, I don't think it's cruel, because we are going in, we're not just leaving them to cry for 3 hours. So it's really annoying, my battery ran out in the middle of my controlled crying rant. So I can't remember where I was. So it is, what I was saying is, it is tiring, and it is stressful because no one likes listening to their kids cry. Parents who do control crying don't like listening to their children cry, and I always just sort of sit outside their room and do it that way. But in the long term, it gets them to sleep through. They sleep really well. They learn to self-settle in the night, and sleep is good for everybody, let's face it. So that's why I do it, and I personally don't think it's cruel. I don't think my children have been left feeling abandoned or anything like that. I just think it's a method that works, and it works for us. And if you don't want to do it, then that's absolutely fine. But I don't like it when people think that people who do it are cruel and horrible parents, because, as I said, it really isn't like that. They are not screaming themselves to sleep every night. It's just not like that. It's just a method that works in a couple of days, and they never feel like they're alone. I think the reason why they're crying is because they're like tired, they're in a temper if it's my children because they're not getting what they want, and yeah, they do want us to go and sit with them, so they're not getting what they want. But I don't think it's because they're not crying because they feel abandoned. So that's the end of my list of questions. So I hope you like this video. I hope it gives you a little more of an insight into how I parent, and I hope you don't hate me now because I do control crying. But there we are. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I've got lots of exciting content coming for you over the next couple of weeks. I'm really feeling inspired about YouTube, so stay tuned for some more fun videos. Bye.